Hi friends! So I wanted to make this video. First of all, welcome to my channel. But I have wanted to start this channel and make this video for a very, very long time. And really what has stopped me has been overwhelming insecurity and overwhelming doubts and anxieties and just things that a lot of us go through on a daily basis. And what's really ironic about that is that's what I wanted to start this channel about. That's what I wanted to start the discussions around, are the anxieties that as a culture and as a generation and even as a population we're experiencing right now, because it's just so incredible to me how many people I run into that I share my story with, because I have a tattoo that is very noticeable and people ask me about it, and it's related to my anxiety and depression. And just in general conversation, I try to be very open about the fact of being anxious or having anxiety, and people expressing that they deal with it too, but those are people I would have never thought would deal with it. And that's something that I wanted to bring attention to, being someone who people are very surprised that I deal with anxiety and depression and mental illness. It's interesting to me how I still have those people where I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought that that's something that you deal with. And I just wanted to open up the conversation and really, talk about these discussions or talk about these topics kind of in length, and how to deal with them, how to live with them, how I'm dealing with them, how I'm living with them, how I find my friends or my family or anybody who's willing to share their story with me live with them and deal with them. So I decided that I'm going to kind of start these week-long sessions where all week we're covering one topic, which all week is going to be 3 videos. And they're not going to exceed 10 minutes. I'm not going to talk your ear off, but I just think it would be very beneficial to open up these conversations and reach out to that person that feels alone or feels like they can't or are not being heard the way that they want to be. And I think it's very important to open up those discussions. So kind of without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So let's talk about anxiety as the kind of first big topic that we're going to go through, and this week is going to be about, because this has been the one that's been more so that one that I'm like, this is what I need to talk to people about. This is what people need to know about. This is what we need to start discussing. And someone said to me the other day, the whole life's a bitch and then you die quote. And my thought was, anxiety's a bitch and then you die, because really living with anxiety, you live with it every single day. And a lot of people equate anxiety to panic attacks and being curled up in a ball and not being able to breathe and crying and all of those things that are really triggers and can very much induce anxiety in people just thinking about them, talking about them. But what a lot of people don't see is that anxiety manifests in so many different ways. It manifests socially, it manifests in relationships, it manifests in insecurities. Anxiety is one of those things that is just always there, always in the back of your head. And I personally have struggled with it on an incredible level, to the point where I did not leave my house for over a week. I thought that I was going to become agoraphobic. The thought of going out in public just absolutely crushed me. I barely ate that week, and when I did eat, it was delivered to my house. I couldn't even go out to a fast food restaurant. I didn't want to get in my car. I've lived on a spectrum of everything, of taking medication, which is also a stigma that we need to talk about and that there is nothing wrong with, to now going to therapy semi-regularly. I wish more regularly than I do. But, you know, it's just something that we all live with and deal with. So, not we all, but a lot of us, a lot of my generation and millennials, and a lot of other people in other generations who may not even know what it is because it just hasn't been accepted in their generation. It's not talked about. I have family members of different generations who I was really surprised when I would listen to them talk, because in my head I think it sounds like anxiety. It sounds like some of the things I go through and some of the things that I have been able to place a label on and kind of work through, and things that they've been living with for years and years and years and haven't been able to work through because they refuse to accept the fact that they may have anxiety, because it's not something that's accepted in their generation. It's not a mental health issue. And I mean, some of these people that I've heard of in my family and in other families that are dealing with it, you know, mental health isn't even something that you talk about. It's very hush hush. There's nothing wrong with you. It kind of reminds me of, you know, back in the 1800s when you were marrying people off, you know, you never wanted to let anybody know that there were mental health issues in your family because it ruined the bloodline or whatever. And, you know, that's what some of that kind of reminds me of. So a lot of us do deal with it, and living with it is something that requires work. It requires work, and so many people don't necessarily know how to do the work. They don't know how to find the resources to figure out what kind of work they should be doing, and they just are really at a loss because maybe they don't have access to therapy, maybe they don't have access to mental health medications, maybe they don't have access to resources. Whatever it may be, they don't know where to start. So I want to kind of give you guys a place of where to start. And one of my biggest things that I can say is books and music are going to be your best friend, or can be your best friend. They have made my work so much more focused. They've given me resources to go to when I couldn't afford a therapy session. They have allowed me to but to really dig deep in my emotions and in what I'm going through in order to live with anxiety and be able to leave my house. There's no better resource, more affordable, more accessible than music and books. I mean, for the most part, you can get them anywhere, with donations, with libraries if you can't necessarily afford to buy them, with book exchanges. There's really an endless supply. And if you have access to these videos, you have access to the internet. So that's going to be a huge thing for you, is to start kind of looking at figuring out where your resources are, figuring out what you want your resources to be. Do you relate more to books, or do you need someone to talk you through it? Do you need a video such as something like this? Do you need person-to-person interaction? Or, you know, are you more auditory? Do you need music to listen to, something that's going to kind of get the message? Or even audiobooks. You don't necessarily want to read anything, you can't focus enough to read anything, but you want to hear that knowledge and you want to hear what's going on in that. So an audiobook would really be an option. So I would like to share a couple of my books that I really have grown with and still read multiple times, and still read, you know, going through panic attacks and nights where I just can't sleep and I just need something that I know will ground me and kind of bring me back. So in the next couple of episodes, I am going to show you the books and the music that I love and that I relate to. And then we're also going to go through kind of more of the physically doing the work, not necessarily reading the books, not necessarily listening to the music, but kind of the physical, the mental, the spiritual, because whether you like it or not, anxiety requires a spiritual connection. Whether or not, and I hope I didn't lose you, whether or not your spiritual connection is to yourself, like mine is. I'm not a faith person. I have never been that type of person, and if you are, that's amazing. That's your spiritual connection. Whether your spiritual connection is the universe, whether your spiritual connection is God, Mother Nature, multiple gods, like I said, yourself, you are going to need to learn how to connect with something, someone, and making it kind of necessarily outside of yourself. Even though my spiritual connection is myself, it's almost like it's a different being. It's, you know, maybe a hybrid of myself and the universe, I guess I should say, and that sounds extremely narcissistic, but I will explain it, and hopefully it will make sense to you, and hopefully it will help you in some way if you are not the type of person that, you know, feels a connection to God or the universe or demigods or planets or whatever it is. I just want to give you guys options and the ability to see that everybody's journey is different, everybody's work is different, but that doesn't mean that we're not all in this together. It doesn't mean that we can't help each other. It doesn't mean that my story won't connect to you and your story will connect to the next person and the next person, and so on and so on. So I'm looking really forward to sharing this with you guys, and I can't wait for the next video.